Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. In the city of Etherhelm, where magic and technology wove together like the intricate threads of a tapestry, the sun cast its golden light across the towering spires of stone and steel. The ancient city, nestled between the peaks of Valor and the great Azure River, stood as a testament to the delicate balance that had been struck between the arcane and the mechanical. It was a world where spells were whispered alongside algorithms, where wizards and engineers walked side by side, each contributing to the advancement of society in their own way. Amidst this complex world lived Calvin, a mage of considerable renown within the Council of Arcanum. His reputation was not merely for his magical prowess, though it was undeniable, but for his wisdom and his deep understanding of both the mystical and the technological. Calvin was a man of 50 winters, his once dark hair now streaked with silver, his eyes the deep blue of the night sky, filled with the weight of countless decisions made over decades. For years, Calvin had dedicated himself to the study of ancient texts and forgotten lore, seeking to understand the mysteries of the world that others had long abandoned. His sanctum within the Arcanum's grand library was a place of solitude and study, filled with scrolls, tomes, and devices of both magical and technological origin. It was here, in this sanctuary of knowledge, that Calvin made a discovery that would alter the course of history. One afternoon, while poring over a particularly obscure text, Calvin's fingers brushed against a hidden compartment within the ancient wooden desk he often worked at. Intrigued, he carefully pried it open, revealing a small, dust-covered manuscript bound in worn leather. The title, etched in faded gold leaf, read simply, "The Nullifier." His heart quickened as he realized the significance of what he had found. The manuscript detailed the existence of a device, a relic from a forgotten civilization, capable of eradicating magic from the world entirely. The Nullifier, as it was called, was a technology so advanced that it could dismantle the very essence of magic, rendering it powerless. It was a weapon of unimaginable potential, one that could reshape the world as he knew it. Calvin's hands trembled as he read further, the implications of the Nullifier weighing heavily on his mind. The text described how the device could bring about a new era of technological prosperity, free from the dangers and unpredictability of magic. Yet, it also warned of the irreversible consequences, the complete and utter annihilation of the arcane arts. Magic, the force that had shaped civilizations, that had brought both wonder and terror, would be no more. For hours, Calvin sat in his sanctum, the manuscript before him, his mind reeling with the gravity of his discovery. The weight of his responsibility settled on his shoulders like a mantle of stone. The choice before him was clear, yet impossible: destroy the Nullifier and preserve the world of magic, or activate it and usher in an age of technology, but at the cost of everything he held dear. Calvin knew he could not make this decision lightly. The fate of the world rested in his hands, and he was not prepared to act without considering every possible outcome. He needed counsel, someone who could help him navigate this moral quagmire. And so, he sought out Lydia. Lydia was a technomancer, a brilliant mind who had spent her life bridging the gap between magic and technology. She was one of the few people Calvin trusted implicitly, her loyalty and intellect beyond question. She lived in a modest home on the outskirts of Etherhelm, where she conducted her experiments in peace, far from the prying eyes of the council. When Calvin arrived at Lydia's home, she greeted him with her characteristic warmth, her gray eyes twinkling with curiosity. She was a woman in her late 30s, her auburn hair tied back in a practical braid, her hands stained with ink and oil from her latest project. Calvin wasted no time in explaining his discovery, laying the manuscript before her. Lydia's expression shifted from curiosity to concern as she read through the text. When she finally looked up, her eyes were filled with a mixture of fear and awe. This changes everything," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Calvin nodded, his gaze fixed on the manuscript. "I don't know what to do, Lydia. The nullifier could bring about a new age, one where technology flourishes and the world is freed from the dangers of magic. But it would also mean the end of everything we've known, the destruction of magic itself." Lydia sat back in her chair, her brow furrowed in thought. "There's no easy answer, Calvin. Magic has brought both incredible beauty and unimaginable horror into this world. It's unpredictable, chaotic. Technology, on the other hand, offers stability, control. But to erase magic entirely, I don't know if the world could survive that kind of change." They talked late into the night, discussing the potential consequences of each choice, weighing the pros and cons with the care of scholars dissecting a complex problem. But in the end, no clear answer emerged. The dilemma remained, as impenetrable as ever. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty. Calvin returned to his sanctum, spending long hours contemplating the future, his thoughts a maelstrom of doubt and fear. He knew he could not keep the nullifier a secret for long. The Council of Arcanum, ever vigilant, had spies everywhere, and it was only a matter of time before they learned of his discovery. It wasn't long before his fears were realized. One evening, as the last rays of the sun faded from the sky, Calvin was summoned to the council chamber. The chamber, a vast hall of stone and crystal, was filled with the most powerful mages in the world, their eyes fixed on him as he entered. At the head of the chamber stood Archmage Eldrick, a man whose presence commanded respect and fear in equal measure. Eldrick was an imposing figure, his white hair and beard flowing like a river of silver, his eyes as sharp and cold as steel. He had led the council for decades, his wisdom and power unmatched. But he was also known for his ruthlessness, his willingness to do whatever was necessary to preserve the supremacy of magic. "Calvin," Eldrick's voice echoed through the chamber, "we have heard rumors of a discovery you have made. A discovery that could threaten the very foundation of our world." Calvin stood tall, his face betraying none of the turmoil within. "I have discovered a manuscript, Archmage, one that speaks of a device known as the nullifier. A device that has the power to eradicate magic." A murmur ran through the chamber, the mages exchanging uneasy glances. Eldrick's eyes narrowed, his expression unreadable. "And what do you intend to do with this knowledge?" Calvin hesitated, the weight of his decision pressing down on him like a vice. "I have not yet decided. The nullifier could bring about a new age of technological prosperity, but it would also mean the end of magic. I do not take this choice lightly." Eldrick's gaze hardened. "Magic is the lifeblood of our world, Calvin. Without it, we are nothing. The Council will not allow this device to exist. It must be destroyed, and all knowledge of it erased." Calvin's heart pounded in his chest, his mind racing. He knew that the Council would not hesitate to take drastic measures to ensure their control over magic. But he also knew that there were others who would see the nullifier as an opportunity, a chance to reshape the world in their own image. As if on cue, a voice rang out from the back of the chamber. "Perhaps we should consider the possibilities, rather than rushing to destroy what we do not fully understand." The voice belonged to Dr. Marlowe, the leader of the Axiom Guild, a faction of technologists who believed in the supremacy of technology over magic. Dr. Marlowe was a tall, thin man with piercing green eyes and a mind as sharp as a blade. He had long advocated for the advancement of technology, often clashing with the Council over their reliance on magic. The nullifier could be the key to a new era, one where technology is no longer shackled by the unpredictability of magic. "We must explore this possibility, not fear it." The chamber erupted in debate, the mages arguing back and forth, their voices rising in a cacophony of dissent. Calvin stood in the center, his head spinning, the voices around him fading into the background as he grappled with the enormity of his decision. But he knew that whichever path he chose, the world would be forever changed. The council would stop at nothing to preserve the dominance of magic, while the Axiom Guild would do whatever it took to harness the power of the nullifier. And in the middle of it all was Calvin, a man torn between two worlds, two futures, unable to bear the weight of the decision any longer. Calvin excused himself from the chamber, the debate continuing in his absence. He needed time to think, to clear his mind and consider his options. He retreated to the sanctum of solitude, a hidden sanctuary deep within the peaks of valor, where he could meditate in peace. The sanctum was a place of great power, a nexus of magical energy that had been used by mages for centuries to seek clarity and wisdom. It was here, in the quiet of the mountains, that Calvin hoped to find the answers he so desperately sought. As he sat in meditation, the world around him seemed to fade away, leaving only the steady rhythm of his breath and the beating of his heart. Time lost meaning as he delved deeper into his thoughts, his mind wandering through the corridors of his past, revisiting the choices that had led him to this moment. He remembered his youth, the thrill of discovering his magical abilities, the joy of learning to harness the power within him. He recalled the awe he had felt the first time he had cast a spell, the way the world had seemed to bend to his will. Magic had been his life, his passion, his purpose, but with that power had come responsibility, and over the years, Calvin had seen the darker side of magic. He had witnessed the destruction wrought by rogue mages, the suffering of those who had fallen victim to curses and hexes. He had seen the way magic could corrupt, turning even the noblest of souls into monsters, and now, he faced a choice that would determine the future of magic itself. The nullifier was a tool of immense power, one that could either save the world from the dangers of magic or destroy everything that made it special. Calvin's heart ached with the knowledge that there was no perfect solution, no path that would lead to a happy ending for all. As the hours passed, Calvin's thoughts were interrupted by a presence. He opened his eyes to find the spirits of ancient mages standing before him, their forms shimmering with ethereal light. They were the guardians of the sanctum, the souls of those who had come before, offering their wisdom to those who sought it. "Why have you come here, Calvin?" one of the spirits asked, its voice a soft whisper that echoed in the cavern. "What burdens your heart so deeply?" Calvin bowed his head, his voice trembling with emotion. "I have discovered a device that can destroy magic. I do not know whether to use it and usher in a new age of technology or to preserve the world of magic as it is. I seek your counsel." The spirits exchanged glances, their expressions inscrutable. "The choice before you is a difficult one," another spirit said. "Magic has been the lifeblood of this world for eons, a source of both creation and destruction. But it is not without its flaws, its dangers. Technology offers stability," a third spirit added. "It can bring order to the chaos, structure to the unpredictable. But it too has its limits, its risks. The world is at a crossroads," the first spirit continued. "Whatever path you choose will lead to great change. But remember, Calvin, that change is the only constant in this world. Every decision, every action, brings with it both loss and opportunity." Calvin listened intently, his heart heavy with the weight of their words. He knew that there was no easy answer, no clear path forward. But as the spirit spoke, a thought began to form in his mind, a possible solution that had eluded him before. "Is it possible," Calvin began slowly, "to use the nullifier in a way that does not destroy all magic, but only the most dangerous and corrupt forms? To preserve what is good and beneficial, while eliminating the threats?" The spirits were silent for a long moment, their expressions contemplative. Finally, one of them spoke. "It is possible, but it will not be easy. Such a task would require immense power and precision, and even then, there is no guarantee of success." "But it is a path worth considering," another spirit said. "A way to strike a balance between magic and technology, to create a world where both can coexist in harmony." Calvin's mind raced as he considered this possibility. It was a risky plan, one that could easily backfire and lead to disaster. But it was also a path that offered hope, a way to preserve the best of both worlds. With renewed determination, Calvin rose to his feet, his decision made. He would return to Etherhelm and confront the Council and the Axiom Guild. He would propose his plan, offer them a third option, a way to move forward without sacrificing everything. The journey back to the city was long and arduous, but Calvin's resolve never wavered. He knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he was ready to face them. The fate of the world depended on it. When he arrived in Etherhelm, the city was in turmoil. Word of his discovery had spread, and tensions were running high. The Council of Arcanum and the Axiom Guild were on the brink of war, each determined to seize control of the nullifier. Calvin wasted no time. He called for an emergency meeting in the council chamber, summoning both factions to hear his proposal. The chamber was filled with tension as the mages and technologists gathered, their eyes fixed on Calvin as he stepped forward. "I have made my decision," Calvin announced, his voice steady and clear. "The nullifier will not be used to destroy all magic. Instead, I propose a compromise, a way to harness the device's power to eliminate only the most dangerous and corrupt forms of magic, while preserving what is good and beneficial." The chamber erupted in debate, the mages and technologists arguing over the feasibility of such a plan. But Calvin stood firm, his resolve unshakable. He knew that this was the best path forward, the only way to prevent the world from descending into chaos. After hours of heated discussion, the Council and the Axiom Guild finally agreed to Calvin's proposal. It was a risky plan, one that would require the cooperation of both factions, but it was a chance to create a new world, one where magic and technology could coexist in harmony. The following days were a whirlwind of activity as Calvin worked tirelessly to modify the nullifier. He enlisted the help of Lydia and Dr. Marlowe, their combined expertise in magic and technology crucial to the success of the plan. Together, they carefully calibrated the device, ensuring that it would target only the most dangerous forms of magic. When the time came to activate the nullifier, the city held its breath. Calvin stood at the center of the chamber, his hands resting on the device, his heart pounding with anticipation. He knew that there was no turning back, that this moment would determine the future of the world. With a deep breath, Calvin activated the nullifier. A wave of energy swept through the chamber, spreading out across the city, the continent, and finally, the world. The effect was immediate and profound. The most dangerous and corrupt forms of magic were eradicated, their power dissipating into the ether. But the benign and beneficial aspects of magic remained, their essence untouched by the device. As the energy dissipated, the city of Etherhelm began to change. The balance between magic and technology shifted, the two forces no longer in conflict but working together in harmony. The skyscrapers of glass and steel stood side by side with the ancient stone spires, each a testament to the new world that had been born. Calvin stood in the chamber, his body weary but his spirit lifted. He knew that the world was forever changed, that the balance between magic and technology had been redefined. But he also knew that it was a change for the better, a step toward a future filled with possibility. In the days that followed, Calvin watched as the world adapted to the new balance. The Council of Arcanum, though diminished in power, continued to protect the world's magical heritage, ensuring that the knowledge of the arcane was not lost. The Axiom Guild, freed from the constraints of magic, pushed the boundaries of technological innovation, creating wonders that had once seemed impossible. As for Calvin, he faded into the background, content to let the world move forward without him. He became a figure of legend, his name spoken with reverence by those who knew of the choices he had made. But he was not interested in fame or glory. All he cared about was the future, the world he had helped to shape, and so, Calvin watched from afar as the world he had once known transformed into something new, something extraordinary. The future was uncertain, as it had always been, but for the first time in a long while, Calvin felt a sense of peace. He had made his choice, and he was content with the outcome. The world was no longer dominated by magic or technology, but by the delicate balance between the two. It was a world of harmony, a world of possibility. And in that world, Calvin saw hope, a hope that would carry the world forward into a new era, one where anything was possible.